Rock star. Good to see you.
I wish for your sake, Sam, that it wasn't a Star Trek movie, but it is. You're just tied to it forever.
The funny thing is I'd never watched Star Trek before. So I'm familiar with the reference just because people have made it to me so many times that I've never seen. I've never seen any of the Star Trek stuff. I've never seen any Star Wars stuff. So I'm totally clueless on it other than the reference that people tell me.
If it makes you feel better, he is the best villain.
Well, good. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, so like of all the ones, he's the best one.
Well, speaking of villains, on either side of the Red River shootout with Texas and OU, there's the question about Mateer play or not. That's kind of affected the odds and the line. But man, someone said the other day that this rivalry might have more surprises than any other rivalry like this one. But we saw Michigan beat Ohio State. We've seen Auburn stun Alabama. But this one truly, I think, is so much emotion that a play early in the game can just absolutely throw this thing into the dryer.
Yeah, because half the stadium is your fans. So half the stadium is Texas, half the stadium is Oklahoma. So every time there's a big play, it's loud in that place. It's not like if you're on the road and then you silence the crowd, or if you're at home and it becomes deafening. There's always going to be a large crowd reaction to whatever big plays happen. And there's just something really strange and weird about this game that these things happen. You look at, for instance, Texas comes in, and I was going over these numbers earlier. They are one of the worst teams in the country at allowing quarterback pressure. They're 9th worst in quarterback pressure allowed. Oklahoma is the best in the country at pressuring the quarterback. So what do you think is going to happen? We think Oklahoma is going to go in there and sack or harass Arch Manning for 4 quarters. But no, in this game, Arch will come out and throw for 3 touchdowns in the first half, and then we'll all be looking sideways.
Yep, he'll hit a long fade early for 65 yards, and then it just sends the whole thing into like a tumble. Like I said, it just it's the way it is. And it's crazy that an early play, and then you had the Kennedy Brooks comeback year when Texas was annihilating them, and Oklahoma came from 21 points down to win that game. We've had that too, where late in the game teams go off too. So, what are your thoughts about Mateer playing or not?
I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like gamesmanship. If the initial thought from what we had heard after the surgery was the hope he would be back for October 18th at South Carolina. This would put him about a week early, and I'm not a doctor. I don't know anything about hand surgery or thumb injuries, but I will say that I do feel like if Brent Venables was being up front, which you never know with college football coaches, if he really wasn't practicing full and he wasn't doing good on good, he wasn't doing 7-on-7 earlier in the week, then I have a hard time thinking he's going to play a lot on Saturday. To me, going from not being able to throw 7-on-7 on Monday to playing in the game and starting the game on Saturday seems like a stretch. Now, if Brent is just trying to pull the wool over our eyes, then okay. But based on everything that we know publicly, as much as Mateer wants to play, I think it's a smokescreen. I get the sense that they're going to ride Michael Hawkins early, and then if they need him in emergency, maybe they go to Mateer.
Sam, it's different things for both these schools. If Oklahoma loses this game, yes, it sucks. Yes, their fans will be mad. But if Mateer comes back soon and they keep playing like they were before he got hurt, then everything's going to be fine for Oklahoma. I mean, they do have a tough schedule, but he's shown that he can win big, tough games. He's already done it a couple times this year. For Texas, if they lose this game, it is over for them. Like, that's it. October 11th, done. And that would be wildly disappointing. Maybe the only team more disappointing would be Penn State at that point.
Yeah, no doubt, because you were the preseason #1 team, a popular pick to win the national championship, or at least get into the deep into the college football playoff. And pretty much all that would be off the table with 3 losses at 3-3 in the midpoint. Because I wouldn't foresee them running the table the rest of the way and getting into the bracket at that point. Regardless, I think Texas does have some issues. The most present one is the offensive line. That has not worked out like they thought it would. They have not taken a portal offensive lineman the entirety of the Steve Sarkisian era, which is remarkable. Most teams go to try to find 1 or 2 to shore up some depth. If you're on the extreme level like Houston, they went and got 5 out of the portal. to shore up their offensive line. Steve Sarkisian and that staff felt like they had developed well enough to get a line that was good enough, but clearly it is not. They have struggled up front. And to me, that's where the game is going to be won or lost. If they can block, and by the way, run the football, then they have a chance. But if they cannot, then I think it's going to be really an uphill battle for them. And honestly, when you look at the schedule the rest of the way, there are still some tough games. I think Vandy's a tough one. Mississippi State, they still got A&M on the schedule. So it's not really a cakewalk after Oklahoma, even if they do survive it. I'm really looking forward to seeing what kind of questions Texas answers if they can.
So last week, Florida led to us having the discussion that we're having about Texas, and there was all sorts of alarm bells of what the Longhorns were walking into. Now the Gators are not in the swamp. They're going to Kyle Field where there's a clear home field advantage. Nevertheless, given what they just did last week, how on alert are you if you're Mike Elko and company? And just what do you think about this game from the A&M viewpoint?
Yeah, I think just from a pure talent standpoint, you do have to be careful with this one. And when you look at the way their defensive front played against Texas, that's what you have to be ready for if you're Mike Elko and you're Colin Klein. You have to be ready for this. The edge rushers, I thought, played really well. Even Steve Sarkisian even said, I think they probably didn't give enough proper respect to Florida's edge rushers. They were more concerned about the interior defensive line. So if they can get after Marcel Reed, then you could make this game ugly. And if you make it ugly and low scoring, then anything goes. And DJ Lagway, I thought, finally played the way that we thought he could. We started to show the signs of what we thought he would be coming to the season. And maybe he may be getting his footing a little bit because he didn't practice too much this offseason because he was dealing with so many injuries. And quarterbacks need reps. And now that we're 5-6 weeks into the season, he's finally gotten some reps. And I think maybe you're starting to see his play come around. All that said, I think Texas A&M is one of the best teams in the country right now, top to bottom. They're certainly not perfect, but they're a really good offensive football team, really explosive on the edges, and they're a defensive team that I thought showed last week that they can really get it done. Last week and the week before against Auburn, that they can shut you down and pitch a shot out if they have to. So right now, I'm really high on the Aggies, but this will be a fun one just because of the sheer amount of talent on the field on both sides.
Yeah, and DJ Lagway wasn't A&M his second choice, right?
I think they tried to come into him late. I don't know where they fell in the pecking order, but I know late after Elko got there, they tried really hard to get him.
Sam, Tech is dominating on defense for the first time in modern human history because they went out and got the guys, and the rules are there that they can get them now, and they can flourish in that. Did you ever think that you would see a day when Tech would win games on defense? And not to say that their offense is not winning these games, but it starts on the defensive side of the ball, and Joey McGuire has kind of changed the whole vibe of the program because I do think that they have a defense-first attitude this year.
Yeah, no, I never did think that they would ever get to the point where we're talking about Texas Tech being number one in stop rate, which is, of course, our good old friend Max Olson pioneered that statistic. They're number one in that. They are in the top 10 nationally in pressure rate. They also are in the top 10 in pressure rate, despite being a team that blitzes a lot less than your average team. They only blitz 20% of the time. That means they're getting pressure with their front four. And the reason why it's unexpected to be, not necessarily this season, but in the greater landscape of Texas Tech football as a whole, is in order to have a defense like that and to have pass rush like that, you have to recruit it. It is elite talent that you have to recruit. And historically, Texas Tech has not been able to recruit those type of players because they are not a blue blood. They are not a perennial power. And the big elite defensive linemen always go to Ohio State or Georgia or Alabama or Texas or wherever else, other fill in the blank blue blood program. Well, now in this era, if you have the financial backing and you have the strategy and you have the culture and you have the facilities, guess what? You can go get those guys. And they did. And people will say, and I've heard a lot of GMs and personnel directors tell me this offseason, well, they overpaid for David Bailey because I think they paid him like $2 million plus. They overpaid for all these guys. Lee Hunter, they paid him over $1.5 million. Guess what? I don't think they're saying they overpaid for him right now. When you look at that defensive line, when I saw them in person last week when they played Houston, there was not a soul that could move Lee Hunter out of the middle of that defense, and they could not handle Romello Height and David Bailey off the edges. That's not to say that there aren't going to be teams that Texas Tech runs into that can't. But most of the teams they play the rest of this year are going to have a really hard time with it. So in my mind, it's money well spent for them.
Yeah, and old money never likes new money, right? And that's what we're seeing. I mean, it's a traditional thing. I mean, over decades and decades and centuries. I mean, old money always like kind of looks down their nose, and that's very much what it feels like sometimes when you're listening to that conversation. Having said all that, do you give Kansas any chance to sit here and try to upset the apple cart out in Lubbock? I mean, if this was in Lawrence, I'd be a little bit more inclined to believe that their chances, but they could be explosive. They got some receivers. I mean, this could maybe be interesting. What do you think?
Yeah, no doubt. I think when you have a quarterback as talented and experienced and mobile as Jalen Daniels, I think you always do have a chance. And I think Lance Leipold's team is always pretty well coached, pretty well disciplined. But it being a road game with Texas Tech selling the place out again, I think they sold out all their home games. It is going to be a little bit of an uphill battle for them, in my opinion. But this is again a test for Texas Tech's maturity. They're 5-0. Everybody's singing their praises. Can you avoid that letdown that sometimes happens with good teams when you have to handle success? This is not a place that Texas Tech is used to being. So how they handle that, I think, and how they come out early in that game is going to be really critical.
Well, if they have the same personality as Kim Coulter, who is a Texas Tech fan that watches this show, then he's very sporadic with his emotions, Sam. So they could be in for quite a bit. Your thoughts about the upper echelon of the country right now? Ohio State rolling, Oregon, Indiana, hell of a game. Penn State just got bludgeoned, and I don't know where they end up. What are your thoughts about Indiana, and what happens if, hypothetically, if they were to win? How much would that that would be massive. I don't expect him to win, but what Cignetti's done.
Yeah, no, I think it would be more validation and proof of concept for Curt Cignetti, because I think people want to dismiss what he's done because they don't necessarily have the elite talent level that you see on the Ohio State roster or the Miami roster or the Oregon roster. And so there is a tendency for us as a college football viewing block to say, oh, that's a really nice story. They're a really good team, but move over for the big boys. This is your chance to kind of prove that. Last year they had it against Ohio State. It didn't really work out very well, but this is another chance for them to do that. I think when you look at the rankings, for my money, Ohio State, Oregon, and Miami are a clear top three, and they're a tier unto themselves. And then you have a tier below that. And I think Indiana is in that second tier. When you watch how they dominated Illinois a few weeks back and how they have delivered on some of these big games. I know the Iowa game wasn't the cleanest and wasn't the prettiest, but Cignetti's a really good coach, man. As he says, Google him. He wins football games. So if they're able to upset the apple cart here, then you have to consider them in that first tier, in my opinion, because of the style they play and how consistently successful they have been since he's gotten there.
Anything else, Paul?
Sam, Bama and Mizzou is surprisingly flying under the radar this week. And Mizzou's been really good. Bama's been great since the opening week. And Ty Simpson's put himself on the map. But Eli Drinkwitz is probably going to be one of those candidates if the Florida job opens, because he's had a lot of success against them. And he's really smart. But nobody's really talking about the Tigers.
No, not really. And I think they'll like that because they've got a lot of talent. When we were just talking about Texas Tech, Mizzou has one of the best defensive line and one of the best pass rushers in the country too. And that's what's going to make it interesting for Ty Simpson in Alabama is how does Alabama handle that edge pressure and how well can they contain it? Oh, by the way, they have a pretty explosive offense with Bo Pribula, who has been one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the country this year. Ahmad Hardy, the transfer from Louisiana Monroe, who has a tackle-breaking machine and has been a lot of fun to watch. That offense has been a lot of fun, and I will tell you, Drink has done a good job of finding offensive skill players, but now they have a defense that you can really pair with it, with the pressure they're able to put on you. So that is a game where we do our weekly picks every week for our staff, and I was having a hard time with that one because Alabama has been so dominant lately. But Mizzou, I agree with you. I think they flying under the radar, and I think they are one of the best teams in the country.
How intrigued are you by Arizona State at Utah on Saturday night, 9:15 kickoff? I mean, talk about flying under the radar. I think people who follow the league know it's a big game, but we're so focused on Tech and so focused on this or that. And, man, this ought to be a hell of a football game.
That's an old Pac-12 after dark for
Yeah,
you. It's
it
Bryce
is.
Eccles, baby. That's going to be fun because, and you know, the last time we had Sam Levitt on a late night kickoff in a national slot, it was at Mississippi State. It was a game they had kind of in the bag, and they let a big touchdown go at the end. So it's a chance for redemption for them. These are again two teams that are really good with really good quarterbacks, talented teams that you expect to be in the conversation, and that home field advantage for Utah is never one to overlook. So I know Texas Tech went in there and handled, but they're a different talent level in these two teams. But you saw how loud that place was when Tech came into town. I expect it to be the same when Arizona State comes to town. So Devin Dampier and Sam Levitt on the same field is going to be a lot of fun.
All right, the only other game I wanted to ask you about, and I'm probably adding it to the point our audience is like, God, it's like all you're talking about, but I've got to while the spotlight's on Denton, Texas this weekend. I mean, North Texas hosting a huge matchup, and I just wanted your thoughts on how big of a deal this is with USF rolling in, the opportunity to beat a top 25 team, and just what all it means.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking college football playoff implications here. I mean, the at this rate, I feel like the playoff representative from the group of five is probably going to come from the American based on how well that conference is done. And USF obviously has already the win over Florida on the road. North Texas undefeated. Drew Messmaker has been one of the best stories in college football for my money. And I think it's a really big opportunity for them. They sold out the stadium. It's a really big news for North Texas. Not something that happens. I don't know that it's happened before. If it has, I think maybe the first time they opened it in 2011 maybe was the only other time. So really big opportunity for Eric Morris and his team. But this is a USF team that is really fast, really physical, really talented. And we're going to see a battle of, we talk about roster budgets with a team like Texas Tech. USF is at the top of the food chain in the American. Their roster budget's in the 8 to 10 million range. North Texas is more in the floor, like in the low single-digit million. So it is going to be a battle across the board on Friday night. I'm sorry, and I'll be there. I'll be at the stadium to watch it because I'll be in DFW for Red River. So I'm going by tomorrow night to go check it out and see it with my own eyes. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I
was wondering if you were going to be there. I for some reason I had a thought that you might be. So that's very cool that you will be. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, looking forward to it.
And sold out, first ever sellout. That's great. It's going to be the mean green, and good luck to Eric Morris, who we had on about a week or so ago, in what they're doing. They went 5-1 last year, and then they kind of lost. They got to win late to make it to a bowl game, but they're fun to watch. It ought to be Alex Golich with what he does. You know that they're ready too. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time, Sam.
Thank you. You'll have a good weekend.